half battery. Other two are charging. Looking good. Let's get it. I don't know what kind of face this is, just... Hello. Hi, hey. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Talks, brought to you by me. This week's coffee of choice is the Liberty Roast from my beloved Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Please sponsor me. I'll be waiting.
I made it iced, and I almost swallowed an ice cube. Today's video is about irrational fears. And it is unscripted. So we're gonna hope for the best. Some examples of irrational fears could be you start your car and it blows up. Another example of an irrational fear is spontaneous combustion of yourself. I don't know why I'm just going with the fiery and explosive things for examples, but apparently that's where my mind is going today. And another example of irrational fears would be, if I go to Walmart, my dog is going to die. Which was a real thought that I had back in March. We're back. Battery died, and I didn't have any more batteries charged. And so while I was waiting for the battery to charge, I changed spots, and I rearranged the room. You know, to keep you on your toes. You know, keep you always guessing and like never prepared for what I'm about to do next. Cause I'm like, I'm freaky like that. I don't know. Where was I? So my dog, I think I was talking about what breed he was. He's a husky mix. Let's just put it that. And he's essentially been my emotional support animal throughout the entirety of the year so far. A job he did not sign up for, but a job that he got nonetheless. The story behind as to why one Sunday evening, I thought my dog was going to die if I went to Walmart. This story starts out years ago. Years and years ago. And by years and years ago, I mean like 8 years ago. So, I had 3 dogs when I was a kid. They all lived to be old. 2 of them, they lived to be about 13 each. They passed away within a month of each other. And when my mom and I moved out of Florida and into Georgia, my sister kept them because she stayed in Florida and they were too old to move, you know. Like I said, they were both about to be 13. And so my sister kept them. And my mom and I were in Georgia for about 6 months, and then we visited my sister for Thanksgiving. And unfortunately around that time, the slightly older one, she passed away. And then her sister passed away about a month later. You know, which is fine. I don't want to say fine, but you know, it happens. Old dogs, you know, they lived a good life. They lived a long life. We loved them every second of the day. But that was the start of why I felt like if I left some area or somebody behind, that they were going to die. You know, whether it be person or animal. And that is obviously illogical to think so. And it wouldn't have been that bad if it weren't a thing that didn't keep happening repeatedly. So that happened with the 2 older dogs. And then, you know, I moved out when I was 20. And my mom's dog, Misty, she was about 15 at that time. Which is pretty old for a dog, if anybody knows, of course. Especially for, you know, the mutt breed, the mutt mix that she was. That was really old. You know, Misty lived a very long and loving life. And, about a couple months after I moved out, my mom moved to wherever she moved. For the sake of her privacy, I'm not going to say where. She came down to visit me for Thanksgiving. And, Misty had come to my house one time. I gave her a lot of love while she was here. And then about a month later, my mom had to put her to sleep just because she wasn't having quality of life anymore. And it wouldn't have been right to keep her alive. Because, again, she wasn't really living. She was 15. She had one eye removed. She was going blind in the other eye she had. And she basically had doggy dementia. But, she was well loved. And that was another piece as to why I felt like if I left something behind, they would die. Because that happened with Misty. Which, again, really illogical. And a large part of me knew she was an old dog. Same thing with her sisters. She lived a long, full life, and it just so happened to be after I had gone away. One other one that I actually forgot about till just now, my old neighbors. They had a Rottweiler, and his name was Bear. Big old baby boy. Sweetest dog. He was the definition of a gentle giant. And when I still lived at my old house, every now and then I would go by, or I would go in the backyard to walk Misty, and I would just hear Bear, barking, and I'm like, "Hey, Bear," and I could hear him go, "Whoop." And then I would go to one of the holes in the fence, and I would just say, "Hey, buddy," and he would come over, and he would be like, "Hey, it's so good to see you," and it was really nice. But there was one point where he wasn't doing too well, and I actually stopped by my old neighbors because I was in town to go see him, and I had already moved out at that point, and quite literally within a few hours after me seeing him, saying goodbye to him, he passed away. Which, again, I didn't really even fully realize that was integrated into this kind of thought pattern that I had with this irrational fear part. And, so far in this line of thinking, it had only been animals. But unfortunately, animals were not the only instance of this. I had a best friend back when I lived in Florida. Him and I only knew each other in person for a year, but we became best friends really quick. His name is Mason, and because I had moved to Georgia after we finished middle school, we pretty much just talked online, played games together, that kind of thing. And the last time I saw him in person was Thanksgiving of 2015, around the same time we had to put to sleep our oldest dog at that time. That was the last time I saw him in person. In all senses of the word, he was my childhood best friend. And he could sometimes be a little bit of a dickhead. But in the way that best friends are, I don't know how to describe it other than that. There were times where there was one time in 8th grade, he pantsed me in front of my crush in gym class. And he was that kind of best friend, but I loved him, he loved me, we were boys. We had talked about me moving back down to Florida and getting in a studio apartment and just being like, yo, in the winter we saving money, we turn the AC or the heat off, we just getting hoodies, we don't care if you're gonna be cold. I tried that when I moved into this house for about a week, because I moved in October. After that week, I was like, it's 55 degrees in here. I can't do it. I ain't doing this no more. I'm turning the heat on. I don't care how much it costs. Like, that line of thinking went out the window really quick. I'm like, yeah, 15-year-old us, we thought it would be easier. But, we lived in totally different states. He lived in the middle of Florida. I lived in northwest Georgia. And so, again, the last time we saw each other, we were 14. And, after about sophomore year, I had gotten a job going into my junior year, and then, we just kind of drifted apart. There was no bad blood between us. He was still my boy, I was still his boy, but we just slowly drifted apart, and that's okay. Things like that happen. It's just a part of life, And, we didn't talk as much as we used to, because freshman and sophomore year, we would talk like every single day. Whether or not I was grounded or whether or not he was grounded, we would make an effort to talk every single day, because that's just how it was. And, I went on with my life, he went on with his life. Thought nothing about it. And then one day, I get a text from one of our gaming buddies from New York. Like, we hadn't played a game with him since like sophomore year of high school. But he told me to talk to Mason's dad because Mason passed away about 2.5 months prior, and I didn't know that. But he texted our old gaming buddy. He texted me to let me know that Mason had passed away, and that was after what would have been Mason's 20th birthday. But Mason had passed away 2.5 months prior, and that left a hole in my heart, to be honest with you. Like, he was the first person to really get me out of my shell. He tried teaching me how to not be awkward. I'm still a little awkward, but he was like, stop doing that, it's cringe. Stupid stuff to be like, don't be so awkward. Because, I lived under a rock my whole life. He was like, we're gonna slowly introduce you to the light, to the sunshine, let you go outside a little bit, touch some grass, that kind of thing. That's how he was. He kind of took me under his wing in a sense, because he was way better at socializing than I was, and it left a hole in me to hear that he passed away. And ironically, I had called him the week that it happened, and I didn't even know. My call went to voicemail, and I just thought he was busy. And 2 months later, I wished him a happy birthday, not knowing that he was already gone. And I blamed myself a little bit, because I kind of thought, like, if I didn't leave Florida, he might still be alive. And I remember driving home from the gym, like, I was in the gym that night just looking at his obituary, and I just felt nothing, like nothing inside other than pain and the fact that I missed my own best friend's funeral, and that I didn't even know what had happened. Like, not to put anything on his family or whatever, like nothing like that. It's just that, like, I put it on myself because we had lost contact over those years. And I felt like if I would have at least kept contact with him, maybe he would have still been alive. And so that night, driving home from the gym, I was screaming in my car, it should have been me. Like, why did he have to die? Why was it him? Why wasn't it me? Like, his death broke me. His death broke me. And It took me, honestly, until this year to be completely okay with it. Not necessarily okay, but healed from it. Because, I still wish he was alive. I still wish that I could just go take a road trip down to Florida and see him. But it took me until this year to be okay with the fact that, he's no longer here. But so how all of this relates into that one Sunday morning is it made me feel like if I left anything I loved behind, that it was going to die. Whether it be, dogs or people. And because of that, I held on to some of the people that I cared about too tight, to the point where I wouldn't have even been living my life. I would have been living their life with them, in a sense, like doing the things that they want to do, so that way I could stay around them and make sure that they would be okay because of all of that. And so when I got Ace, my dog, he came into my life at kind of a low point at the start of the year. And in a way, this is going to sound a little silly, but in a way, him and I were just two strays that happened to find each other. A couple of vagabonds that crossed each other's paths. And he's my boy. He's my boy. Most people like dogs that get super excited and always jump and give you kisses. And I had those kind of dogs before. Abby and Susie, the two dogs from when I was a kid, that's how they were. Misty was kind of the same way. Misty was the kisser of the three of them. And so Ace was kind of different. Ace, in a way, was like, he's like a cat in a dog's body. Like he doesn't know how to dog unless he's around other dogs, and that's okay. And that's cool because I don't know how to person unless I'm around other people. And so like him and I just like work like that. And he's my boy. He's my baby boy, and I love him a lot. And that one day, so he was a stray when I got him, and I took him to the vet, and they said he was strong, they said strong positive for heartworms. So like I have to give him heartworm medicine once a month for the rest of his life, which that's fine. It's one little thing. Okay, as long as he's all right. It's not like he has a hard time getting around. He's like 2 or 3 years old. Like he's a fully grown male dog, but he's really young. At first I thought he was about 5 or so because, husky colors, they have grays. He has gray around his snout, but that's just his colors. Around his eyes, he still has like real light brown and other stuff. So he's not old in the slightest. He is still young and healthy. But for some reason I was worried about his health. And in a way, I still kind of am, but he's gonna be fine. There's nothing wrong with him. Like, gonna be a long time before I have to take him to the vet for an emergency visit. Knock on wood, because my boy, But knowing that he had that he has heartworms, and that thing in the back of my mind where it was like everything you love dies. Everything you love dies as soon as you leave it. That kept gnawing at the back of my mind. And one day it was so bad that, I go to the store on Sundays to get my groceries, just like most people do. And there was one Sunday where I just didn't want to go because I was afraid that if I went to Walmart, he was going to die. I live like 5 minutes away from my Walmart. It doesn't take me long to go shopping for groceries at all. I am a single man in his early 20s. I need the bare minimum of things. It doesn't take me long at all. And I was just really worried because of everything that's happened. And I didn't want to go to Walmart because I'm like, what if I come back and he's dead? Just irrational fear. An irrational fear gnawing at me. And I was aware that it was irrational. I was aware that this is a dumb thing because I go to work. I work like 45 minutes away from my house. So even if I just work an 8-hour shift, I'm gone for about 10 hours. And he has always been there on the couch when I get home. And he is always at the door waiting when I open it. And so a quick trip to Walmart, that was completely irrational. But I knew I had to go. I knew I had to go to Walmart. Other than for grocery reasons, I just had to go to prove to myself that he was going to be okay. And so I made sure to hug him really tight right before I left. I'm like, Ace, I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. And then I went out the door, got in my car. In the 5 minutes it took me to get to Walmart, I was holding myself together so that way I wouldn't burst out into tears. In the probably 10 or 15 minutes it took me to shop, I was holding myself together, trying to not think about it. And on the way home, I was trying to hold myself together and trying to not speed so that way I would make it home alive to go see my dog again. And now, Ace isn't really the type of dog to bark. He's pretty quiet. And so when I pulled up to the house and I got my groceries out and I was standing outside the kitchen door, I wasn't waiting for him to bark or anything like that. I was preparing myself for the inevitable. Essentially, I was telling myself, okay, this is like Schrodinger's cat. We will not know if he's dead or alive until we open the box. And I was telling myself like, okay, on the insanely off chance, on the 1 in a million chance that in the 20-30 minutes that I was gone, that he died, and I somehow called it, we are going to be okay with this. It's going to be rough. I didn't even plan that. It's going to be rough, but we are going to be okay with it. Because no matter what, in this time frame that we have had Ace, we have loved him fully and completely. It is going to hurt on the off chance that this happened, but we know we did our best to take care of him and make sure he was loved every second of the way. And I'm preparing myself for that. And then I open the door, I walk in, and then there he is on the couch and he perks his head up. And he comes to me and I just go, my boy! And I just start hugging him and loving him. And he's just like, Dad, you were gone for 30 minutes. Like, what the fuck? And I was just so happy to see that my perfectly healthy dog was alive when I got back from Walmart. That was my irrational fear, which also showed me that I have separation anxiety, which thankfully I've gotten better with. Now I'm just like, cool, I can leave him alone at the house for like 14, 16 hours. He ain't even gonna crap in the house. He's not gonna pee in the house. He'll be fine. I'll just take him out as soon as I get home. And I left food in the bowl for him. He's alright. Because of that, I'm not afraid to just do my thing, do my life. And that was a hard thing to do. And I had to make myself do it. Because I very easily could have just been like, okay, I'm going to sign up for Walmart's delivery services. That way I don't have to leave the house and I don't have to leave my boy. But at the same time, I would have had to go to work, which again is 45 minutes away. And I'd be gone for about 10 hours total. So one way or another, it would have led to me, in a very extreme case, had I not gotten a handle on it early, it would have led to me being a shut-in. Because I was afraid of something that wouldn't happen. Because I was afraid of something completely irrational. And I got over it. And in the moment, it was tough. It was tough and it sucked. And again, I'm a grown-ass man. I'm not afraid to say I was holding back tears the entire time I was going to Walmart. I'm not afraid to say that. And I'm not afraid to say that because it shows that I worked through something that was very emotionally difficult. And I came out on the other side perfectly fine. And that's what matters. And to this day, my dog is still alive. He's still doing well. Him and I still go on our daily walks. And it's great. And I'm not afraid to leave him alone for long periods of time or short periods of time. Because all that fear is just up here. And it didn't need to be. It was a parasite in my mind, and I cleared it out. I threw hands with it, gave it a right hook, uppercut, showed it who's boss, you know? So a lot of this story is kind of an example of correlation does not equal causation. The correlation of all those past experiences leading to me getting anxious about something happening to my friends, something happening to my dog. Sure, emotionally, it was, I don't want to say a good thing. Emotionally, it was valid because I didn't want to have to go through those things again. But logically, it was invalid because that's not the reason it happened. It happened for reasons that were not you. And that's also another thing of don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders. Not everything happens because you stepped on a piece of grass. Just because the butterfly effect is a thing, doesn't mean that you destroy the world by stepping on an ant. Don't let the anxiety get you down. Don't let the irrational fears consume you. And that's pretty much it for this week's episode. I don't really know how to end this one, just because this one was a kind of heavier one. And again, unscripted, because I actually just talked to one of my work buddies last night about it, who's watching this. What's up, buddy? How you doing? Thanks for the support. But yeah,